So here's what caught me completely off guard. This new poll just dropped like a brick through the Democrat Party's glass house, and somehow it's the Republicans who are waking up with the confetti. Yeah, apparently the big government shutdown, or as some are calling it, the Schumer shutdown, has totally backfired. And the numbers? Well, they're absolutely brutal. The public isn't just annoyed, they're pointing fingers directly at the Democrats, saying you did this and you own this. And honestly, that's not the headline anyone in Chuck Schumer's office wanted to read over their morning latte.
You know, you go back to October of 2024, 44% of the American public viewed him favorably. Now, despite everything, look at this, 43%, which is well within the margin of error of that 44%. And here's the thing to keep in mind. This was good enough to get Trump reelected back in 2024. And Donald Trump is basically at the same point here right now, which I think would surprise a lot of folks, especially a lot of folks on the left who very much disagree with a lot of what Donald Trump has done.
But what do you see is underneath that and driving that? Why is he basically the same?
Okay, you know, to quote the esteemed caller Dennis Green, the former head coach in the National Football League, Donald Trump is who the voters thought he was. What are we talking about here? Well, is Trump doing what he promised in the 2024 campaign? Yes, 52%. The majority of Americans say that Donald Trump is doing what he promised, compared to 48% who said no. So what essentially is going on here is the voters expected all of this from Donald Trump. The majority did, and that is why his favorable rating, simply put, has not really moved all that much compared to where it was a year ago. Trump is basically doing what the American people thought that he was going to do. Indeed, if you look at the numbers, Trump has basically the steadiest favorable rating this much through a presidency of any president on record, and it's basically where he was a year ago, good enough to get him reelected.
Now, I'm not here sitting saying the Republicans are saints. They're actually far from it, but it's one of those moments where you can't help but think, wow, they really shot themselves in both feet and then blame gravity, because this wasn't some minor PR fumble. This was the kind of political faceplant that leaves a mark. You've got air traffic controllers missing checks, TSA agents wondering if they should start charging people directly at the airport, and federal workers all over the country refreshing their bank apps like it's a horror movie. And while in the pressure's building, Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are apparently in some kind of political escape room, trying to solve the puzzle of what the hell do we do next? Now, a little spoiler alert, there's actually no exit key. And then there's Trump, the man, the myth, the comeback king. According to this same poll, his favourable hasn't budgeted an inch since 2024. He's like political Teflon numbers that defy gravity logic and cable news outrage cycles.
After five failed votes, it should be clear to Republicans that we cannot go forward unless they sit down and seriously negotiate with Democrats to address the health care crisis. It's that simple.
Do you know what Donald Trump was referring to when he said he'd been speaking with some Democrats?
They later, as I understand it, he has not been speaking to any Democrats.
A poll came out from CBS News that found only 48% of Democratic voters believe what you're fighting for is worth a shutdown. If you don't have a majority of your party, how do you continue?
All I can tell you is the American people feel very deeply about solving this healthcare crisis. And every poll we have seen shows they want us to do it, and they feel that the Republicans are far more responsible for the shutdown than we are.
What about these threats to, do these risks or layoffs? They're still threatening them.
Yeah, the bottom line is that the American people know if they do layoffs, if they do rifts, it falls on Donald Trump's shoulders. He's doing it, not Democrats, and the American people know that.
Do you have concerns that...
Is there any plan?
43% favourability, which, if you remember, is exactly what he had when he won. Think about that. After everything, indictments, impeachments, golf courses, true social media meltdowns, his numbers are basically a frozen lake. They're actually unmoved. I'm actually had to double check that. Like, really? People still feel the exact same way they did before. That's when it hit me, maybe the secret isn't that Trump changed. Maybe it's that voters never expected him to. He actually promised chaos, and guess what? He delivered. It's like ordering a burger and being mad it came with grease. The guy told you exactly what he was. Now, here's the kicker. 52% of Americans think Trump is doing what he said he would do. You can't even get 52% of people to agree on pizza toppings, but somehow Trump's got a majority saying, yep, he's keeping promises. Now, to me, That's wild, especially when the Democrats can't even keep the lights on in DC.
Now, I know the leader is going to show a poll that says that Democrats will be blamed for the shutdown. There are many more polls that show Republicans are blamed. The question in that poll is biased. Biased. In the New York Times, but it's biased. If you turn the... That's true. I don't always believe the New York Times. You can be sure of that. Neither do you. Okay.
There is one sad and inescapable fact that no one can forget here. This shutdown is nothing more than political cover for Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. They are worried about the Marxists flanked in their Democrat Party. The Marxists are about to elect a mayor in New York City. That's Chuck Schumer's state. He's terrified that he's going to get a challenge from his far left. I've noted that Chuck Schumer is a very far left politician, but he's not far enough left for the communists, and they're coming for him. And so he has to put up his dukes and show a fight. So they picked a fight on something that's not even related at all to the shutdown and the funding that we should have gotten done by the end of September. We just need a stopgap measure to give us a little more time to get the job of Congress done. They refuse to do it because they're playing politics, and real Americans are paying the price for it.
And it gets better or worse, depending on how blue your voter registration card is. CNN, now yes, CNN of all networks had to admit Trump's approval rating is steady, while Democrats are in free fall. It's like watching your high school rival succeed at something they said they'd never actually do. Painful, humiliating, and somehow inevitable. But I'll admit, I had one of those double take moments reading this, because in what universe do the Democrats manage to shut down the government and tank their poll numbers in the same week? I mean, that's a special kind of talent. It's like trying to lose a race when you're the only one running. And yet, here we are, Schumer and friends somehow found a way to make themselves the villains in a story they were supposed to be directing. They keep insisting it's all about the people, but every people I know just wants their paychecks and their airport security back.
Because the fact is, socialism is not a 4-letter word in Democratic primaries, not among Democratic voters. It's a 5-letter word in the minds of a lot of Democrats, that 5-letter word being great. Look at this, net popularity of socialism among Democrats. You go back to 2010, it was plus 7 points. Look how high it is now, up like a rocket, up to plus 36 points. That's a jump of nearly 30 points on the net popularity scale among Democrats in just 15 years. And I was looking at the polling from New York City, and what you see is the clear plurality of New York City Democrats think the idea of having a socialist mayor is a good idea, matching what we see nationally. The bottom line is socialism isn't a dirty word among Democrats at this particular point. It's actually a word that, when attached, Democrats seem to like it.
That's a huge jump, and that's not that long ago, let me add.
No.
What about capitalism?
Yeah, okay, so if all of a sudden socialism is now a 5-letter word, great. What I would say is capitalism in the mind of Democrats is a 3-letter word, bad. What are we talking about? Net popularity of socialism among Democrats. Look at this trend. It was plus 8 points in 2010 on the positive side of the ledger. Look at where we are in 2025. Down, falling through the floor at minus 13 points. That's a drop of over 20 points in just 15 years. So we see the exact opposite trend that we see at socialism, which is up, up and away. What we see with capitalism is down, down, down through the floor.
Okay, we're talking about Democrats here. What about if you look at the larger population, Harry? Is it the same type of thing?
This is where the danger is for Democrats, because if socialism plays in Democratic primaries, it does not play in the general electorate. What do we see going on here? Net popularity among all adults. Capitalism is on the positive side of the ledger at plus 12 points. Socialism way, way, way underwater at minus 18 points. So that's capitalism running away by 30 points over socialism. That is why Republicans are thanking their lucky stars if Mamdani, in fact, wins the general election, because they feel like they can play off of him, because socialism may play in New York City among Democrats, but among the general electorate, Donald Trump and the Republicans are saying, hey, look at this socialist mayor in New York City. This is what we're dealing with. So again, something may play in Democratic primaries. It may play in the very Democratic city of New York, but among the general electorate, Republicans are salivating at the idea that they can run against a Democratic socialist being the mayor of New York City.
Interesting way to break down those numbers, Harry.
Meanwhile, $1.5 trillion of government spending is sitting there like an unopened Amazon package, full of stuff nobody asked for and everybody's paying for. So yeah, the American people rejected it. They don't want socialist fluff packaging, as some are calling it. They want order, safety, normalization. Normalization, you know, the stuff your grandparents used to brag about before everything went sideways. And it's actually wild to see polling on this. Democrats are basically embracing socialism like it's a new iPhone release. In 2010, socialism had a little support among Democrats. Now, fast forward 15 years, and now it's skyrocketed up to almost 30 points. 30. Meanwhile, capitalism, remember that thing that kind of built America, has fallen through the roof. Now, I get it. In New York City, socialism plays well. You could put it on a t-shirt and sell it for around 40 bucks. But nationwide, it's a political hazard. Among all voters, capitalism still leading by 30 points. So yeah, run a socialism if you want. Don't be shocked when half of the country looks at you like you just said you prefer decaf.
Brand new CNN poll out today shows that Democrats' favorability among Americans is at its lowest point in the history of CNN's polling back to 1992. Only 28% of Americans view the Democratic Party favorably. How can you guys turn that around?
I think you have to find, there'll never be a real party leader until we have a nominee for president, but we are moving into a midterms. And CNN has been covering who is motivated to show up in a midterm in the latest polling. And there's a lot of motivation there. I can go back to remember working in the 1996 congressional elections when we were trying to make up for just losing like 60 seats. After a president's elected, normally we do well. And I think that's what we're looking towards the future.
And Brian, what do you think? I mean, it is true. 72% of Democrats and Democratic-aligned voters say they are motivated to go in the midterms. How does your party tap in to Republican enthusiasm that right now seems wanting in a lot of ways?
You know, listen, I think we go back to what's always worked for us. Promises made, promises kept. As of right now, inflation is lower today than when President Trump took office. Gas prices are lower today than when President Trump took office. You know, the price of eggs are lower. So he's going to make the economic message. We just need to make sure that it extends for another year and a half. So that the voters continue to feel it. But I think that's the only way is, you know, we made a promise to the American people. We've delivered on these promises, and that's what should be carried.
And honestly, this is where Democrats just don't read the room. They think they're scoring points with their base, but the base isn't big enough to win the game. You can't govern like you run a college campus. The rest of the country still likes paychecks and freedom, and maybe the occasional gas-powered car. When I saw those CNN numbers showing Democrat favorability hitting its lowest point since 1992, I actually laughed out loud, not because I'm rooting for chaos, but because it's like watching someone ignore every red flag on the road and then act shocked when they crash. Only 28% of Americans view the Democrat Party favorable right now. 28%. You could probably find a higher approval rating for pineapple on pizza, and that's saying something. And that's what makes this so fascinating. It's not that voters suddenly fell in love with the GOP, it's that they're looking around and realizing, hey, these guys at least pretend to have a plan.
Oh, one thing that I'll just start out with is shutdowns aren't popular. Polling is going to find people don't want the government to shut down. They expect that elected leaders can figure out some type of solution to avoid this. So to some degree, it reflects badly on both parties. But the interesting thing about shutdowns is that people don't decide who to blame based on whether or not the government's shut down or how long it lasts. They decide who to blame based on the issue that the shutdown is being litigated over, and that's healthcare. And an interesting poll that came out in the middle of the shutdown found that only 28% of Americans say that they are very concerned about being personally impacted by the shutdown, but 60% of Americans are very concerned that 4 million people are going to lose their health insurance if these tax credits expire. And so the pain point between the shutdown and what the shutdown is actually over is totally out of whack and against the Republicans in this. And so the blame is shifting towards these Republicans as Democrats have defined this shutdown on terms of health care. It's the right fight.
Yeah, and of course, they're also coming on top of the Medicaid cuts from the Big Beautiful Bill, which is hurting people already. We've seen areas over the last couple of years where Republicans have lost ground, but Democrats haven't been able to make up that ground in polling. So there's been a kind of disconnect between dissatisfaction with President Trump and some of his policies and the failure of Democrats to kind of capitalize on that dissatisfaction. Do you think this could be different? Do you see Democrats starting to pick up some ground because of the shutdown that could help them even potentially next year?
Yes, it is early in terms of some of the metrics you might look at.
Yeah, but we want
the generic, the generic ballot and popularity. But here's what I'll say. Voters disapprove of the way Republicans are handling this shutdown.
Meanwhile, Democrats are still arguing over pronouns and policy jargon, whilst the rest of America's like, can someone just turn the government back on, please? here's where I generally feel surprised. Amid all the fingers pointing, inflation's actually lower than when Trump took office, gas prices are lower, eggs, yes, the eggs are the great inflation symbol of 2023, are cheaper now too. That's what happens when you try focus on the basics instead of trying to reinvent society every 6 months. And that's what's keep looking at Republican voters loyal. They look at Trump and see consistency, a lot of noise, sure, but also results. Meanwhile, Democrats keep shooting themselves in the foot and wondering why they can't dance. I even caught one pundit saying Democrats are in danger of doing to themselves what no Republican ever could do. And I thought, well, that's it. They've become their own opposition party. Every day this shutdown drags on. More independents are crossing over out of frustration.
A lot going on here in terms of, obviously, still government shutdown appears to be an impasse as well. Trump is trying to, pin the blame on Democrats. We'll show you some polling to indicate whether people are buying that or not. But let's go ahead and take a listen to Trump.
Well, I call them Democrat layoffs. They're Democrat layoffs. They're causing it. We're ready to go back. We have a record-setting economy. We have a record-setting country. Prices are way down. We're doing better than the country's ever done. And the Democrats hate seeing that. It's up to them. Anybody laid off, that's because of the Democrat. Despite the current Democrat-induced shutdown, we will get our service members every last penny. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
And Sagar, I'm sure you saw how they were forcing people's out of office replies to blame the Democrats and putting up messages on the government websites. I mean, Hatch Act, what's that? Apparently doesn't matter anymore, but that's his framing.
Yes. Well, I said this morning. Is this the weirdest shutdown you've ever been through? 2013 and 2018, it was the biggest story in the world.
Yeah.
Front page of the New York Times, there's not a single story about the shutdown. Not one.
Really?
I went to the front page of the Wall Street Journal. OpenAI is the leading story. Nobody cares. It's crazy. I mean, look, this may be a DC bias, but 2013 and 2018, I cover the White House in 2018, every single day, shutdown, shutdown, shutdown. When I was in the White House briefing room, shutdown. When Trump was doing a press conference, all we're asking about is a shutdown. If you were in the White House today, what's the number one question you would ask? Probably Portland or Gaza.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask Trump about the shutdown.
Yeah.
Now, people who voted blue in 2020 are now saying, you know what, maybe red isn't so bad after all. And the longer Schumer digs in, the deeper the blue hole gets. If this goes up, Republicans won't just win the next election, they'll inherit a generation of voters who've completely lost faith in the other side. And that's the real danger here. Because the truth is, most Americans don't want chaos. They just want competence. They don't care who fixed the problem. They just want it fixed. And right now, the Democrats are too busy arguing over ideology purity to notice the country slipping away from them. So yeah, this shutdown might look like a political stalemate, but make no mistake, the scoreboard's lighting up red. And if Schumer doesn't figure that out soon, the next poll won't just crush the Democrats, it will bury them.